Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be back. Actually, I spoke a couple of years ago, I believe on the topic of tolerance. I really enjoyed that time. And I was actually attended the graduation ceremony last year and got to see some of the speakers that Rabbi Greenberg was able to get to come present to you all. And I think he's really, really blessed to have access to some of the best minds in Monmouth County, mine excluded. But really, really smart, prominent people who have great life experiences that you have the benefit of learning from, as well as your amazing mentors that I know serve you so well. So the first one I'll start with is probably what I think is the most important thing I see, a trait I see in people, leaders I look to work with, people I want to have in my life on a personal level, and that is about being consistent. So consistency is one of those tenets, and you talk about traits that not everybody has. The ability to be consistent in the way you show up every day and how you show up and how you interact with everybody is a superpower for many people. Think about in your life the people that you have that you really can't always rely on, whether they're not there when you need them. Maybe your teammates in sports. Maybe there's some people in your life that it doesn't matter how talented they are, they just aren't always there for you. Think about that in the way, think about people who show up, maybe you can't predict what mood they're going to be in one day because they're inconsistent in the way they interact with you and your peers. And so why that matters here is because in order to be persistent, it really requires you to be consistent. And pretty much every day putting the same level of effort, the same level of focus in what you're trying to achieve, and it's staying on task and staying on point. When I think about athletes that I admire, whether they're Hall of Famers or athletes that are high achieving, or musicians, I'm a big fan of music. When I think about the musicians that I like to follow, it's not the ones that have the one amazing season where they blow, like whatever sport they're in, they blow everybody away. It's about being able to do that year over year after year after year after year. And that consistency takes persistence in order to be able to achieve. And so consistency is key. And it's a lot of that is based on the habits that you have. There's a lot of really interesting research now on habits and identity and how those things play into each other. So if you think about it, and I love the example of a musician. Does anybody here play a musical instrument? A few of you. Do you see yourselves as musicians today? So what? So there's this natural thing that happens with people and anything really, but musicians are a great example of it, is you start by just learning and starting to play an instrument. You probably have to be reminded to practice. You probably have to force yourself. You probably have to like convince yourself that it's time to practice. So at some point during that journey, it becomes a passion of yours. And then it becomes something you naturally do. And part of that transition is about how you view yourself. And it's not always about your abilities. It's not always you don't have to be a virtuoso to consider yourself a musician. But there's something in that journey that takes you from something you have to intentionally do to something that you do as a routine. And a big part of that, as research is showing us, is about how you identify yourself and how you view yourself. And if you're going through any challenge in life, having an identity of someone who is going to persevere and be successful is key to keeping you going in those really challenging moments. I think one of the things I see a lot in people, and I've done it myself throughout my career. I even did it when we started this talk. Is about being self-deprecating. There's a huge difference between being humble and being self-deprecating. There are too many people that I engage with almost on a day-to-day basis who are so willing to criticize themselves, to not take credit when they do something well, because they're afraid of being perceived as being not being humble. But what I believe happens when you do that repeatedly is you start to rob yourself of that identity that you need. If you're high achieving in anything and someone compliments you and your routine is to respond back saying, "Oh, really, I just got lucky." That long term, I believe, will impact your ability to identify as being a successful person. So just be mindful of self-deprecation versus being humble. When you do something well, take credit for it, take pride in it, because that ultimately feeds your identity, which ultimately feeds your habits. And once you get to the point where something is routine, it becomes really easy to keep doing it and to keep persevering. Motivation is the next one on the list. And this is referenced a lot in the materials that you read coming in. And it's really about your why. And so you need to constantly reevaluate your passions, because that is going to keep you pushing forward to be successful in whatever you're trying to achieve. So really understanding your why is so important. Throughout your time, when you're facing struggles, it's really important that you build in moments to just reconnect with that why. So again, understanding your passions, understanding your why, and finding ways to reconnect whenever it's possible. In order to keep going when times are really hard, you have to have just overall faith and belief in something. For many, it's a belief in a higher power. It is for me. I know one of my common prayers is just for my ability to the wisdom to see opportunity when God presents it to me. And I think that is sometimes when times are at the hardest, that is when you need your faith more than any time. So I think it's a really good habit to get it, to really, I mean, obviously this is a group of very faithful people, but to continue to have that essential part of your life helps you in your resiliency. Because sometimes when things are most challenging, again, the only thing we could do is pray for wisdom to see what God is presenting for us. Learning is an important part of this, and so we're midway through the list. You may not realize it, but everything in your life is a learning opportunity. Every interaction you have, every relationship that you have, is all a learning opportunity. And there's such a focus on mentorship, and you are all blessed to have mentors with you, and you probably have mentors even outside of this program. And mentors are usually very positive influences. But you are going to experience a lot of people in life that you're going to learn from, hopefully, when they do things that you don't necessarily agree with, that don't necessarily align with the way your morals and your values. And you should be using each one of those opportunities as learning opportunities. And so why this is important? Because when you're dealing with a big issue and you're trying to muster up the passion and energy to work through it, if you're looking at the negative side of everything that you're doing, it's really easy to wave the white towel and fold. So what you really want to be doing is looking for these learning opportunities in everybody that you're talking with, and taking positives away. This is referenced often in your book about learning from mistakes, and this is really where you do this, right? So you need to be reflective of the situation, so you can actually learn from the mistakes that you may be experiencing. The next one is somewhat jokingly listed as geology, and so what that references is that there are, in your life, you will come across mountains, stones, and pebbles, and so it's really important that you're able to recognize every one of them. If you're facing a challenge and you really have an insurmountable barrier ahead of you, essentially a mountain, you need to know when it's wise to go around the mountain, right? When you're dealing with small incremental issues and you're having those, as Muhammad Ali's quote, it's not the size of the mountain, it's the pebble in your shoe, to paraphrase, that stops you on your journey. You need to know when you're dealing with those small issues that you need to fix in order for you to keep moving. So it's really understanding the size and scope of the challenge you're facing. I don't know how many people in their life deal with friends maybe that the smallest obstacle seems like it's a massive issue. And so having perspective on what are those mountains, what are those stones, and what are those pebbles is really important for you to keep moving forward. Because your strategies are going to be different for each one of them. Tenacity. So tenacity is what you have read a lot about in your book. It's this feeling of you have to keep going and you have to get up I think this is one of the scenes in every movie that I've ever watched. There's always a scene where the hero is for some reason getting beat up by the villain who is never strong or never is, and so at some point he keeps getting knocked down, he or she keeps getting knocked down, and they keep getting up, and they keep getting knocked down, and they keep getting up, and at the end of the year, end of the movie, they always persevere and win. But that is a great symbol for what this is really about, this tenacity to keep going, and when everything seems like it's stacked against you, when you feel like you should just wave the white flag and quit, it's really the focus to keep going. Opportunity, there's a simple equation on the sheet that you have, and that equation is something I live by. It's your talent plus your drive times your opportunity equals your success. And so what is that? What does that ultimately mean? It's really simple. But if you have all the talent in the world and you have all the drive in the world, and if you have zero opportunity, you will never be able to be successful. And so what you need to do is to keep making that opportunity through your perseverance. I could tell you how many times in my career have I met with people who have had career aspirations, and I talk about a pathway for them to achieve those goals. And then when those opportunities are in front of them, they inexplicably say no, because it's not the right time, because maybe they have to talk to their family first, and so its spouse doesn't want them to take this opportunity, or the money's not right, or the title's not right. People make 1,000 excuses why say no, and then sit back and say, nothing ever good happens for me. And nothing good happens for you if you don't get in the habit of saying yes, finding those opportunities and moving forward. So it's at the core of what perseverance is, because it's never the right time. And it's never going to be the perfect scenario. But each time you say yes and that opportunity opens doors for you, you then get an opportunity to do more and more and more. My last one is in regards to principle. And so this is one I've learned the hard way over the years, and comes into play when I think about business decisions that I've made. I've made some good ones, I made some bad ones, and when I've finally realized what my core issue was, is I am someone who was raised with strong values, strong morals, and what I now understand is strong principles. And so there's a difference between those things. So your morals and your values are core to who you are as people, and the way you see the world, the type of world you want to live in. Your principles sometimes, though, are based on very, very hardwired thoughts that you have that are necessarily not always rooted in your values and your morals. And so an example of this is I was doing a real estate transaction. It was part of a larger group, a condo association, if you will. And we had a large number of the suites in the building, and we were trying to sell the building. And we had one of the owners who was holding out because they wanted a higher rate of return than the rest of the owners were going to have. And so for many months, I was locked into a principle that that individual didn't deserve more than everybody else, so therefore, we were not going to move forward with this deal. With a lot of reflection, I realized that not only was I negatively impacting my organization because moving on from this property was really important for us, but I was also holding back all the other owners because I was so focused on making sure that that person didn't get over on the rest of us. And again, it was being sucked into more principles than it was about my own moral and ethical beliefs. So after a lot of reflection, we landed up pivoting and doing the right thing and doing the transaction the way it needed to happen, and ultimately the other owners all benefited as they should have, and we moved on. But these principled decision making comes into play almost on a daily basis in almost every negotiation I have in my role. And so I think it's always a powerful reminder to say, be weary of principle, being overly principled. And so why this really matters is that sometimes in our journey, and we're facing obstacles, those obstacles that prevent us from persevering are our own internal, that we put up our own mountains in front of us that aren't even there, but because we're overly principled on what we do. And I think you always have to, I think if you go back and connect everything back to your core beliefs and your morals, you will get through those moments in a way that doesn't impact you negatively, and allows you to continue to move forward. So these are a snapshot of what I look when I think about perseverance, how it's impacted my life. A lot of these are based on mistakes that I've made throughout my journey and my career. Ones that I think if you focus on and you reflect on as you're going through your journey as a student, as you move on to college, then on to your early profession, and as you start to develop in your career, I think will pay you dividends over the long runs. Because perseverance is really, it's built through experience, through a lot of success, probably even more failures. It's your faith, it's your passion, and ultimately, it leads to you being just more consistent in what you do, how you do it, how you approach your life, and ultimately, I think, is very impactful.